We go now to our next speaker, a fascinating speaker. We're staying in the Arab world, kind of. Her Excellency Gloria Guevara, Chief Advisor to the Saudi Ministry of Tourism, who'll be speaking on a global initiative making tourism part of the solution. She's come all the way from Saudi Arabia, but she's actually Mexican and has an amazing career in travel and tourism. Please join us on stage, Her Excellency Gloria Guevara, Chief Special Advisor to the Ministry of Tourism of Saudi Arabia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Thank you for the invitation. What an honor to be here as a former minister, as you mentioned, in my country, Mexico. Then I had the honor, of course, to work with WTTC for years. And now I'm part of a region that, it was mentioned before, that is going through an amazing transformation. I wanted to talk to you a little bit of one of the things that we're doing in the region. I can spend the whole day talking about multiple initiatives, but I think right now is very important what's happening globally. How do we share knowledge? And I want to thank the organizers for this event of having me here, our friends, MEPs, also to see them, the commissioner, and everyone. Why am I here today? Well, many reasons. Of course, seeing a lot of friends is wonderful. But if we look back, and the leaders before me, they spoke about this, the crisis that we just had a couple of years ago was the worst in our history. These are some numbers from WTTC. Of course, I was leading that organization. But 62 million jobs were impacted. And yes, those jobs are still not recovered. Europe faced a lot of challenges during the summer because of the shortage. A lot of those people went to other industries. Aviation was impacted. A lot of pilots, unfortunately, retired. Airports were impacted. Hotels were impacted. Tour operators, restaurants, everyone. We knew that those jobs were impacted because there was no income. Now our job is how do we bring back those people to this sector that is eager to recover, but we're not there yet. Europe is the largest region of the world before COVID and even today, and has done a fantastic job recovering, but we're not there yet because we don't have the manpower. And at the same time, if you look at the IPCC report, it's very clear. Climate change is here. Look at just what happened in Europe. If you turn on the TV today, wildfires in California, we had all over Europe, of course, flooding, look what's going on in Pakistan. Climate change is here today. So we have the challenge of the recovery of the sector, while at the same time, we need to make sure that it's sustainable, that we are aligned in climate change. This is our current situation that is impacting our sector at the same time. Now, before COVID, it was very clear. Our sector contributed 10% of the GDP, 1 in 10 jobs, 54% women. But I would say the biggest challenge, 80% SMEs, the fragmentation. How do we move all these SMEs at the same time in this climate change battle? How do we bring everyone together? Here in Europe is 1 in 10. These numbers are global, but it's the same in Europe. Very important sector. Now let's talk about the challenges. There are only two reports for this very important sector that have been made. They don't match. One report says that we contribute to 5% of CO2. The other one says 8% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change is damaging the same assets that we promote. Coral reefs, for instance. As I said before, it's a very fragmented sector. And before COVID, there was a perception that we were not doing enough. Flight shaming, for instance. And we lost a little bit of the battle of the communication. I have in my house a generation set. I don't know how many of you have teenagers. My son keeps reminding me that sometimes travel is not good for the environment. And it's a battle that I have to confess. I need to talk to him about the benefits, the social impact, the benefit of flying, the benefit of traveling to other destinations, because we share the income and we benefit communities. But yes, the perception was there, and it's still today. And at the same time, We know that the number of international travelers, we hope, is going to grow. We just need to make sure that it does with the proper planning. So these are some of the challenges. Now, what about other challenges? I can tell you today that there are some airlines, airports, travel companies that they have done a fantastic job in climate change and sustainability, but we are not sharing enough. When I was in WTTC, I learned that one of the airports, one of the biggest airports of the world, it was already climate neutral since 2010, and nobody knew that. Why we don't document those cases and share the knowledge and help everyone? If you Google today, just try. How can you what is your footprint? How can you measure the footprint of a restaurant in Athens, in Paris, in Mexico, here in Brussels? How a tour operator knows what is their footprint? There is no one single source of information, one single one-stop shop that you can go and find that information, let alone how do you share knowledge? If a travel agency is doing a fantastic job in Greece, can a travel agency in Spain learn from that? Or a travel agency in France, or in Riyadh, or in the US? We're not sharing enough. A lot of work has been done. I think a lot of great efforts are out there. The question is, how do we bring all of that together? How do we share knowledge? How do we accelerate this coordination so that we can drive the change, as Federico mentioned? And at the same time, how do we make sure the travel and tourism has the clear measures? Because we need to own the narrative, and we need to have very clear what's our impact and what we're doing towards climate change. So that's why when I moved to Riyadh, I was very impressed with the sustainability initiatives happening in the region. And I have to tell you, this is a global initiative that is starting from Riyadh. And what we decided is we cannot do it alone. A lot of wonderful work has happened here in Europe, in the US, in many other regions around the world. And what we decided is, how do we bring all those great experts, all that great knowledge, by creating a coalition, right, that we can move faster in this fight against climate change. And what guiding us is the three principles of, we have done a lot of work in economic sustainability, but what about climate? What about nature and communities? What do we need to do to affect climate, nature, and help communities at the same time? And how do we create this platform? So what we're proposing here is to create a center, a multi-country, multi-stakeholder coalition that will help us to accelerate this transition. We want to make sure that we support, we drive the action, protecting nature, supporting communities, and we're concentrating, as it was mentioned before, three aspects of sustainability: climate, nature, and communities. Very specific, with very specific business plan, and we are defining the strategy as we speak. These are just some of the examples that these services that we have been asking the different stakeholders are needed. I talked to a lot of SMEs. I was very fortunate, as I say, to work with WTTC and talk to a lot of leaders. Some of you here are members. I talked to a lot of governments. I was a government official, I was a minister, and always is the same. We need more research. We need more information. We need best practices, but we also need funding. We need money. We need to know how to get the money to move to renewable energy. We need to understand how do we reduce waste. We need to understand how do we help that SME. If an airport is doing a fantastic job, can we share the knowledge? If a hotel is doing a fantastic job, can we learn from that experience? How do we do that? Right now, we're working very fragmented, and there is an opportunity to join forces and move faster. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this initiative that, as I say, is multi-country, based in Riyadh, that will provide in a very friendly portal all these services. Now, what we would like to work with all of you is in the prioritization. What is first? Where do we spend the money? Where do we spend the resources? Should we spend resources in looking for ways to have more sustainable transport? What about the construction? What about food waste? Because food waste, to my surprise, has a huge impact in climate. Huge. And it doesn't cover a lot in the news. You don't hear a lot in the news what's happening with the food waste. But it's very sad what is happening. If we reduce the food waste, we can have a direct impact in climate. What about water management? That's another issue in a lot of countries. Can we reduce the consumption of water? What about resilience? Where do we spend our money? Where do we spend our efforts? And by working with these governments and all the stakeholders in our countries, we're learning a lot. For instance, we learned that in some countries, a big concern is the raising of the sea level. A lot of destinations are going to disappear if we don't find a way to be resilient. We need to help them. There's a lot of research happening, but we're not sharing enough. And again, in the case of the SMEs, it's the same situation. If you have a restaurant, if you have a tour operator, if you can find a place where you can go learn your footprint, understand how to be climate neutral, and at the same time get the funding and the resources, why you don't want to be part of the solution? Because everything can be there together. And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And these are just some of the examples, from knowledge creation, raising awareness, engaging with the youth. Yes, because the youth today, I can tell you, Generation Z, has a very different mentality than all of us. You don't have to tell me of the value of travel and tourism. I believe it, I know, I have seen it in my own country. I can see that in Saudi. I see that in the Middle East. It's creating jobs, it's bringing prosperity, it's bringing opportunities where you don't have that. It's helping us to share the income from developed to developing countries. It has a humongous social impact, giving opportunities to women. You can go on and on and on. However, my son doesn't know that. His generation doesn't know that. They don't have the same appreciation for travel and tourism. So we need to make sure that they are part of the solution, that we engage with them. And while we go through this journey, we make sure that travel and tourism is part of the solution, and they are part of the process as well. Same thing with all destinations and all the different players, because a lot of wonderful work is being done, but I'm just afraid that we're not sharing, communicating enough, positioning well, measuring and tracking at the same time. We're going to invite all the stakeholders from SMEs, governments, academia, countries, you name it. We believe that working together, we can make tourism part of the solution. And I'm here to invite you all to join forces because we're in this strategy definition. We would like to understand what are the priorities of the SMEs in Europe? What are the priorities of your stakeholders in the region? Should we invest in management of the waste of food? Should we help with renewable energy? Should we help with biofuels? I know that the airline and aviation industry is doing a fantastic job. There are some limitations that we know because of science, because of technology solutions, but we also need to help them as well and communicate more. But at the end of the day, it's very clear that by joining forces, we can do it. So we would like to invite you. The email is there for my colleague to be part of the process. I want to thank once again the MEPs for hosting us, for inviting us. This is a process, it's a journey that we believe that next time that we travel, I'm hoping it's going to be great for climate, great for the environment, and it is already great for the communities. And that's a little bit of what we're trying to do. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm hoping to see all of you end of November. We're going to be hosting WTTC Summit in Riyadh, where we'll continue the conversations. Of course, it's going to be at the same time that the World Cup, so you can fly in and out to go to the games. But as I say before, Europe is the largest region in the world. Middle East is having the amazing transformation, and is the region that is growing the fast. So we want to join forces and invite, of course, the other regions in this very important journey. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Her Excellency Gloria Guevara, thank you very much indeed.